and Shivani, and Agastya, and I think Advitya also. So if you didn't send your homework in, I can't look at it. So we're going over the verses that are covered in this lecture. We still haven't finished the lecture. There's still a lot more of it. It's a long lecture. And we did 1 to 14 last week, and this week we're doing 15. Oh, and homework for today was 15 to 22. Write down verses 15 and 22 discuss Srila Prabhupada's lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.2, April 13, 1975 in Hyderabad. Write a short description of each of the verses and why Prabhupada is using them in that specific order. Very good. So Shrestha begins with Bhagavad Gita 1866. Description. This verse is explaining how Krishna tells Arjuna, abandon all varieties of religion and surrender unto me. I shall take care of the rest. How Srila Prabhupada uses the verse. Srila Prabhupada uses a phrase from this verse, Sarvadharma Prityaja Maimekam Saranam Vraja, to describe how the ultimate goal of life is to surrender to Krishna. Very correct. However, since people misunderstood Krishna, he came down as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the form of a devotee to teach people what? Teach people how to surrender to Krishna. Instead of asking them or telling them to do it, this time he gave an example of how to do it and what is the behavior of a real devotee. And then next is Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhulya 1953, famous verse, Namo Mahabodhanyaya Krishna Premapadayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guritsase Namaha. This is a prayer offered by Rupa Goswami to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He says, O most munificent incarnation, you are Krishna himself, appearing as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You have assumed the golden color of Srimati Radharani, and you are widely distributing pure love of Krishna. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you. And how is Prabhupada using this verse? While explaining the glories of Rupa Goswami, Srila Prabhupada explains how Rupa Goswami, knowing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was an incarnation of Krishna, paid his obeisances to him first, using the phrase Krishna Prema Pradayate. Prabhupada is explaining that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is especially merciful because he is showing us the way to love Krishna in the disguise of a devotee. Okay. So next verse is Srimad Bhagavatam 11th Canto, 5th chapter, 32nd verse. This verse explains how those who are wise perform Sankirtan in order to worship Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who is Lord Krishna himself in this golden form. And how is it used? Further explaining the characteristics of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada uses this verse to explain how the incarnational Lord is constantly chanting the glories and how his complexion is golden and therefore a-Krishna, or not the same color as Krishna. Well, he's demonstrating that chanting Hare Krishna is the Yuga Dharma, the way in the age of Kali one can attain perfection of spiritual life. By this constant chanting and remembering of the Lord and engaging in his service, associating with devotees, etc. So next is the Shri Panchatattva prayers, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. And this verse is chanted to offer obeisances to the Panchatattva. And how is it used? After explaining all the glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada explains that this is why we chant this verse all the time. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda. It's called the Sri Panchatat for prayers. And then next is 7th chapter Bhagavad Gita, 23rd verse. This verse explains how those of less intelligence worship the demigods and go to the planets of the demigods, but Krishna's devotees reach his supreme goal. And Srila Prabhupada explains, or Shrestha explains how Prabhupada uses the phrase Alpa Medasam, means those of low intelligence. But to give a striking comparison, Srila Prabhupada says that being characterized as Alpa Medasam is similar to the head being filled with cow dung. Srila Prabhupada says that people become unintelligent if they do not perform Sankirtan. Okay. And then the next verse is one of the prayers of the 6 Goswamis. This verse basically offers a basis to the 6 Goswamis and then explains the qualities of Goswamis. That is, not envious of anyone, always engaged in chanting and hearing, and very pleasing, and they're blessed, and they're blessing others, and engaged in delivering the conditioned souls from material world. And how Prabhupada uses this verse, it's to explain the story of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. He explained how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so merciful that even though the Brahmanas got kicked out and received Muslim names due to their employment, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made them Goswamis. Yes, so they were, in a sense, forced to become almost Muslims because they accepted the employment as chief ministers in the government of Nawab Hussain Shah. And the Vedic Brahmins or Hindu Brahmins were so strict that if anyone was employed by a Muslim, they would be rejected as a Brahmana. So, but the qualities of the 6 Goswamis were exceptional. Really, the perfect example of pure devotees. And Lord Chaitanya conferred upon them the sannyasi position so that people could recognize how elevated they were spiritually. Okay, then the next verse was Bhagavad Gita 7.19. This verse is talking about after countless births and deaths, one who is an actual devotee surrenders unto Krishna. Such a great soul is very rare. And Prabhupada says, and Prabhupada uses this in the following way. After explaining the story of the Goswamis and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhupada comes back to the point to explain that Mahat Seva, or service to great spiritual personalities, is necessary for spiritual advancement. And uses this verse to explain that the Goswamis are all Mahatmas who are described in this verse, and explains how we must therefore perform service to these great personalities. Very good. And then next verse is Bhagavad Gita 4:34. In this verse, Krishna is advising Arjuna that he should follow a bona fide spiritual master and serve him in this way, in the way that knowledge of sacrifice can be imparted or learned. And how does Prabhupada use this verse? Tadvidi Pradipatena, to enforce this point that we must follow and serve the Mahatmas. Tadvidi Pranipatena, understanding the knowledge of sacrifices by approaching a bona fide spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada says that this is the main message of Bhagavad Gita. Yes, spiritual life without bona fide spiritual master is not spiritual life. So accepting a bona fide spiritual master is essential to be able to advance in spiritual life. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasada yasya prasadana nagatir kadopi dayam stritvam stasya yasasti indam madhe guroshi charanarvindam. That by the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the mercy of the spiritual master, one cannot make any spiritual advancement. Therefore, at least 3 times a day I should remember my spiritual master and offer my respectful obeisance unto his lotus feet. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur had written this poem, the 8 stanzas, to spiritual master, to emphasize the importance of accepting a bona fide spiritual master. Okay, and then Krishna also says, Tadvidi Paripatena, in 4th chapter, 34th verse. Same thing. And then next is Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.31. This verse is explaining how material men take each other as inspiration, when in actuality they are just leading each other into a ditch, which is referring to the trap of Maya. Srila Prabhupada uses this verse to explain how we must take the right people as our guru and as our inspiration, because who we worship also defines who we are. If we worship a lowly man, we become one simply by... if we worship a lowly man, we become one. Similarly, by worshipping the Goswamis, we begin to inherit some of their qualities. Okay, so basically, by the association of materialistic people, one becomes a materialist, and by association of devotees, one becomes a devotee. And the greatest devotees, like the Goswamis, and of course Srila Prabhupada, are present in their teachings, and so we should take advantage of hearing those teachings on a regular basis to make spiritual advancement. So very good, Shrestha. Then I also got homework from Ria. She says, write down the verses 15 to 22 discussed in the second 2 pages of Srila Prabhupada's lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.2. And she says, the 15th verse quoted by Prabhupada is Bhagavad Gita 1866. In this verse, Srila Prabhupada, in this verse, Krishna says, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Religions he taught. Therefore, Krishna is saying that there is no reason for Arjuna to follow all those religions. He told him, just surrender unto me, and all sinful reactions will be cleared. There is no need to fear anything. Okay, the 16th verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 1953, which says, O most munificent incarnation, you are Krishna himself appearing as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You have assumed the golden color of Srimati Radharani, and you are widely distributing pure love of Krishna. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you. This verse is describing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's purpose for coming to this earth and how merciful he is to tell us to love Krishna and the formula to love Krishna. Therefore, we offer our obeisances to him. Okay? And the 17th verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 11.531, also found in Bhagavad Gita 3.10. This verse says, in the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the names of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates or servants, weapons, and confidential companions. This verse is saying that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. Instead of black skin like Krishna, he has taken the form of golden yellow personality and has come to this world to chant and preach Krishna consciousness. Well, he's assumed the color of Radharani. This verse means, I offer my obeisances Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Nityananda Prabhu, Shri Advaita Prabhu, Shri Gadadhara Prabhu, and Shri Srivasa Prabhu. These are the 5 tattvas that we pray to before chanting our rounds. So 19th verse, Bhagavad Gita 7:23. This verse, men of small intelligence worship the demigods and the fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. This verse is saying that the people who, with very less intelligence, worship the demigods, but since the demigods have limited things, Okay, the worshippers basically do not go beyond material attachments and attaining material attachments as a result of their so-called spiritual activity. So actually, their spiritual life remains stunted. Okay. Since the demigods have limited things, the worshippers' desire will be limited to material desires. Someone who worships the demigods goes to their planets at the end of their life. However, if someone worships Krishna, the Supreme Personality Godhead, at the end of their life they ascend to Krishna's transcendental abode. And since Krishna is unlimited, whoever desires for something and prays to him, they will receive their desire, whatever it is. Not necessarily. As long as their desires are pure, yes, Krishna will satisfy those desires. Although pure devotees only desire to serve the Lord, and if the devotee is persistent and sincere, the Lord grants the devotee's wish. The 20th verse, quoted by Prabhupada, is actually a song, Shri Sad Goswami Yastakam. This verse, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Dasa Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, who are always engaged in chanting the holy name of Krishna and dancing. They are just like the ocean of love of Godhead, and they are popular both with the gentle and with the ruffians, because they're not envious of anyone. Whatever they do, they are all pleasing to everyone, and they are fully blessed by Lord Chaitanya. Thus, they are engaged in missionary activities meant to deliver all the conditioned souls in the material universe. This first stanza of the Shri Sad Goswami Astakam is glorifying the 6 Goswamis, Shri Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopala Bhatta Goswami. All of these Goswamis are always full of ecstasy while chanting the names of the Lord. They are extremely merciful and free of envy. The 21st verse quotes Prabhupada, Bhagavad Gita 7:19. This verse states, after many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. This world is full of misery, and after many lifetimes in cycles of birth and death, it will be impossible to remember their original position. But when one is given the chance to redeem their original position, and they take the opportunity and have knowledge about the Lord, they are blessed, as it is really, really rare for someone to try to gain love for the Lord. The 22nd verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 7:5-31, which states, persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life, and who have therefore accepted as their leader a guru or similar blind man attached to external sense objects, cannot understand that there is a goal of life, that cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Lord Vishnu. As blind men, guided by another blind man, miss the right path and fall into a ditch, the materially attached man, led by another materially attached man, is bound by the ropes of fruit of labor, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in materialistic life, offering the threefold miseries. We are blind people as we don't see the path of Krishna consciousness. We should be guided by a realized spiritual master who can clear the path for us. But if the spiritual master is also blinded by the material energy, we get misguided. We are also bound by very strong ropes of fruit of work, which leads into the cycle of birth and death again and again. Very good, Ria. And also Shrivani also did her homework. Let's see. Yes, so okay, so she did 7.5.331. Persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life and who have therefore accepted as their leader or guru a similar blind man attached to external sense objects cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Lord Vishnu. As blind men guided by another blind man miss the right path and fall into a ditch, materially attached men, led by another materially attached man, are bound by the ropes of fruit of labor, which are made of very strong ropes, and they continue again and again in materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries. So, description of this verse. Buddha means bound up. We are, in our material condition of life, we are bound up tight. Hands and legs are bound up. We cannot do anything independently. It is not possible. That we must know. People are declaring independence. That is not possible. That is our foolishness. Okay. Then 1866, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So this is the real purpose of life. Very good. So Krishna wanted that people should take shelter of his lotus feet, Sarvadharma Prityaja, but people misunderstood him. Therefore Krishna came as a devotee, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to teach people by his example. And then 11.5.32, in the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the names of Krishna. Although his complexion is blackish, he is Krishna himself, and he is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. And the description of this verse, this is a method of worship. What is that? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Krishna Varnyam, Krisak Krishna, Sangapangastra Parsadam, but his bodily complexion is not Krishna, not blackish, but yellowish. Tvisa. Tvisa means by the complexion a Krishna, not Krishna. And another symptom, Sangapangastra Parsadam, he is associated with his most confidential devotees and expansions. So he doesn't look like Krishna, but he is Krishna with the hue or the color of Srimati Radharani. So it's a combination of Radha and Krishna in this particular very ecstatic incarnation for the pleasure of the devotees. And he teaches the devotees to take pleasure by doing what he's doing. That is, always chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra in public and encouraging people to chant also. So next is 723, men of small, Bhagavad Gita, men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship demigods go to the planets of demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. So the description, when one prays to demigods, the results will be limited and temporary, while when one prays to the Supreme Lord, ultimately one can reach the Lord's supreme abode, where everything is unlimited and eternal. And then 719, after many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. This is a Mahatma description, one who has fully surrendered to the lotus feet of Krishna after mature experience and wisdom. Bahanam janmanam ante. Many, many births we may go on, philosophizing, Brahman, neti, and so forth. But after many, many births, this is Jnanavan, the Jnani, one who is in knowledge. The Jnanis, they are after Brahman realization. Well, okay, there's more to it than that, but okay, fine. And then 7531, persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life and who have therefore accepted as their leader or guru a similar blind man attached to external sense objects, cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Lord Vishnu. As blind men guided by another blind man miss the right path and fall into a ditch, materially attached men led by another materially attached man are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, which are made of very strong ropes, and they continue again and again in materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries. And then description: one path to mukti, one path leads to mukti, another path to bondage. Two things are there: bondage and mukti. Anda yatandar upaniyamanas tepis sitantriyam urudam nibadha. Badha means bound up. We are in our material condition of life. We are bound up tight. Hands and legs are bound up. We cannot do anything independently. It's not possible. That we must know. People are declaring independence. That is not possible. That is our foolishness. Those are quotes by Prabhupada. So thank you, Shivani. Very well done. Also, I got from Agastya. And anyway, thank you, Agastya. Okay, so today we're going to continue with this lecture. And in this lecture, now we're on the 22nd quote. Which okay, so actually we missed one quote, and that was Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It's on page 4 of Prabhupada's lecture, right before right before the 7531. So anyway, that's okay. So we'll just stick to what we did. So Prabhupada was talking about Nate vidu swartakatim hi vishnam durasaya ye bahir artamanina. And then he quoted Matirna Krishnes Parata Svatova Mito Bipadyeta Grihavratanam Adanta Gopir Vishatam Tamishram Punak Punascharvita Charvananam. Okay, so that verse is a very important verse, again from the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And 7.5.30. So 7.5.30 says, Prabhupada explains, these are the instructions Prahlad Maharaj gave. He wanted to teach his father, an atheist father. So his father inquired, Prahlad, how have you developed this Krishna consciousness? So Prahlad began to smile and said to his father, Matirna Krishne Parato Swatova. He did not address his father, my dear father. He addressed his father as the best of the asuras. Asuryavarya. Tat Sadumani Suryavarya. So he said, my dear father, Matirna Krishna Parato Swatova. To become Krishna conscious is not so easy. Parato Swatova. Even if you hear instructions from others, or if you speculate yourself, it is not possible. Matirna Krishna Parata Swatova. Or making by assembly conference. So it's difficult to become Krishna conscious. It's not simply by listening to lectures or doing comparative studies, going to one seminar and then another seminar. Why? Nagriha vratanam. If you have this intention that I shall live in the material world and I shall become happy in this material world, then there's no question of becoming advanced in Krishna consciousness. So this is a big point that Prabhupada is explaining. That as long as we have some hope that there's some situation in this life in which we're going to be happy materially and have sustained material happiness, one will not make a serious attempt at cultivating spiritual knowledge and taking the time to do it. They'll be pursuing their what's called a pipe dream, P-I-P-E, pipe dream. What is a pipe dream? A pipe dream is basically a false or illusory desire. And let's see, P-I-P-E, dream, D-R-E-A-M. So pipe dream is, sorry. So pipe dream is an unattainable or fanciful hope or scheme. So you should learn this phrase, pipe, P-I-P-E, dream. It's an unattainable or fanciful, meaning something that is false. You never really achieve it. It's a fanciful hope or scheme. Scheme means some strategy you have to become rich or powerful or famous or whatever. So, even if you hear instructions from others or if you speculate yourself, it's not possible. Matir na Krishne parata swatova mito bi, or making by assembly, going to different conferences and seminars. Why not? Na griha ratanam. If you have this intention that I shall live in this material world, I shall become happy in the material world, then there's no question of becoming advanced in Krishna consciousness. Matir na Krishne parato swatova mito bipadyita grihavratanam. Why is there so much material attachment? Adanta Gopi, because they are not Goswamis. Adanta means uncontrolled. Go means the senses. They have given freedom to the senses. Whatever you like, you do. This is their philosophy. Whatever you like, you do. So the result is that if you let loose your horses, whatever you like, you can do, then it will go and cause you to fall down into a ditch, adanta gopi. Similarly, if we give freedom to the senses, adanta gopir vishatam tamishram, we go to the darkest region of hellish condition of life. And what is that? Punak punascharvita charvananam. 7th canto, 5th chapter, 30th verse. Again and again, the same disease of life, birth, death, old age, and disease will continue. So, basically, what Prabhupada is saying here in this, or describing the meaning of this verse, is that it's impossible to find any situation in this material world where you will have sustained happiness, because there are 3 types of miseries. Miseries of this body, miseries caused by other bodies or people, and miseries caused by natural cataclysmic events such as coronavirus, earthquakes, etc. So you're never going to be in a position where you'll have sustained happiness in the material world. It'll always be some happiness, some suffering. Why is that? Because, as we've explained this before, if one is attached to material sense gratification, and if one is always seeking material sense gratification, then material sense gratification is always followed by material suffering. That's the law of nature. So you're not going to have sustained happiness. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more that person is entrapped by material miseries. This is the 5th chapter, 22nd verse. And also the 3rd chapter, 43rd verse, basically says the same thing. So whenever something is repeated several times in Bhagavad Gita, that means it's extremely important. So 243, Prabhupada says, desire for overlording and for sense gratification is the greatest enemy of the conditioned soul. But by the strength of Krishna consciousness, one can control the material senses, the mind, and the intelligence. One may not give up work and prescribed duties all of a sudden, but by gradually developing Krishna consciousness, one can be situated in a transcendental position without being influenced by the material senses and the mind, by steady intelligence directed toward one's pure identity. This is the sum total of this chapter. Let's see, was that 40? So, okay, so therefore, if we remain attached to sense gratification, we'll stay continually in the cycle of birth and death. There won't be any relief from these miseries of life. Prabhupada says, lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with matter, and thus with the mind and senses. The spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. This false identification of the spirit soul is very nicely explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so therefore, unless we receive knowledge from bona fide teachers, we will make this fundamental mistake in life to think that material advancement is going to be our salvation. Prabhupada says, advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of the material existence of the living entity. So you don't solve any problem by having this material, being successful in material sense gratification. It only increases the stay in the material world. We have to take birth over and over again, and it's all suffering. Okay, so therefore, your homework for tomorrow is to read 3rd chapter, verse 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, and explain what is the why is it that people suffer, but they keep coming back. They don't really try and get out of suffering. They just keep going back to suffering. See? And so if you look also in the 5th chapter, 22nd verse, the last line says, the more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. So that is basically the point. But many more things are explained in those verses from that I just 336 to 341. So if you read those verses, you'll have a deeper understanding of why it is that people suffer in this world unnecessarily. And they keep coming back to it. Just like, everyone has a hope that there's some vaccine that they can take and that'll relieve their corona virus sickness. Okay, but that's not going to solve the problem of birth, death, old age, and disease. It's just going to give you temporary relief from one of the ailments. But there are millions of ailments in this world. Every year there's a new type of virus that kills so many people. So just because you were able, one may circumvent one type of virus by some vaccine. Doesn't mean that you're going to survive other viruses. They're coming up every year, and they're transmuting in one way to the other, and it's causing tremendous havoc in society. There's not only viruses. Right now, this is second homework. You look up the 10 plagues of Egypt. 10 plagues, Plaque, of Egypt. And you will see that what's happening today is very similar to what happened to Egypt almost 3,000 years ago. One of those plagues is an infestation of locusts. Well, that's going on right now in East Africa and Saudi Arabia, all the way to Pakistan, and it could cause the death of millions of people. Right? This is besides coronavirus, right? So these are, and if you look up the 10 plagues of Egypt, in fact, let me just see if it's something that's easy to look up. I think it is. Then you see that this is something that's been going on forever in the material world. It's nothing new. And because people are insisting on sense gratification as a way of life, and because of that, the laws of nature don't allow it. And therefore, people are suffering over and over again. Let's see, 10 plagues of Egypt. 1 second. Plagues of Egypt. There's a Wikipedia page. Let's see. So the plagues of Egypt is the story of the book of Exodus. The book of Exodus is in the Old Testament of the Bible. Are 10 disasters inflicted on Egypt by Yahweh, the God of Israel, in order to force the Pharaoh to allow the Israelites to depart from slavery. They serve as signs and marvels given by God to answer Pharaoh's taunt that he does not know Yahweh. The Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. So I guess the Pharaoh of Egypt said, I don't recognize God, your God. Okay, you don't recognize him. But he's going to recognize you, and he's going to show you that he is God. Right? So that's what the 10 plagues were. So let's see, the first plague, what was that? Water turns to blood. And then the second one is about frogs. Yeah, you're going to have a massive number of frogs. They're going to eat the crops and lay waste to the country. And then lice and gnats. Those are things that bite your skin. That's 3. Number 4, wild animals or flies. And number 5, pestilence of livestock, meaning the livestock are going to die. And 6, boils. You're going to have boils all over your body. And 7, thunderstorms of hail and fire. And number 8 is locusts. And number 9 is darkness for 3 days. And number 10, death of the firstborn. So you read that, it's interesting, and you'll see the same thing is happening today because people don't recognize God. Haribol. And then we'll finish up after the opening of the deities. What is the greatest enemy of mankind? If you understand who the greatest enemy of mankind is, then as soon as you recognize that enemy, you put up your defense mechanism. Let's say let's say there's a picture of a wanted criminal. They say, wanted dead or alive, so-and-so. And there's a picture of that person. So if you see someone who looks like that person, you look at the picture, you look at that person, oh, that's the guy right there, right? So what would you do? Would you go up and say, hello, how are you? Can I have your autograph? Can you autograph this picture of you on this wanted poster? No, you would not do that. You would quietly go away as quick as you could and as fast as you could, because that person is wanted for murder. Right? So if you know who the greatest enemy of humanity is, of all people, the greatest enemy of all people, would you go and ask for an autograph from that person? Would you do it? Say, can you autograph this picture of you? This is a wanted poster, sir. This is your picture. I recognize who you are. You know what he would do? He would kill you right away. So, this is explained in these verses, especially 337. It says that lust is the all-devouring, sinful enemy of this world. Lust. Kama. Kama esa krodha esa ragaguna samudbhavan. Mahasana mahapapma vidhi iha vairinam. Vidhi enam iha vairinam. Vairinam means greatest enemy of mankind. So, but to understand this even more, and to understand where lust comes from, you have to look also Bhagavad Gita 5.22. And you have to look on Bhagavad Gita 18.38 and Bhagavad Gita 3.39. That'll give you a pretty good idea. 18.38. That'll give you a pretty good idea of who or what is the all-devouring, that means all-destroying, all-devouring, sinful enemy of this world. This is good information. If you know who the all-devouring, sinful enemy of humanity, of the world, not only humanity, the whole world, that means the environment, everything, then when you see that thing, either in yourself or in others, immediately you'll say, oh, I'm in danger. This is dangerous territory. I better get out of here as soon as I can. Get away from this thing. This is all-devouring, sinful enemy of this world. Okay, so we'll stop right there. If you learned this one thing today, let's say you were going to learn one thing in your lifetime. There are actually two things that you have to learn in your lifetime. This is one of them. And then tomorrow we'll discuss the other thing. So this is the negative thing, and the other thing is the positive thing. That's the solution to this thing. So, today we're going to learn what is the all-sinful enemy of this world. And then tomorrow we're going to know how to defeat this enemy. And whenever there's an enemy, you have to defeat it, right? Because either it's going to kill you or you're going to kill it. So today we're going to learn what is the worst enemy, and then tomorrow how to kill that enemy and get rid of all that evil. Okay. So then you have you learn what is a pipe dream, and then you're going to explain. You're going to find out about the plagues of Egypt, and write them down, the 10 plagues, and then look in the news and see if you can find corresponding things happening in the world that are similar to those 10 plagues going. So, and the reason that those 10 plagues happened on Egypt was because the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, refused to recognize God. Well, so many atheists today refuse to recognize God. Some of them are world leaders also. So therefore, similar types of plagues are taking place today. So you try and research if those 10 plagues, if all, 1 or 2 or 5 or all of them are taking place today also. And then you have your reading to do, and then explain what is the all-devouring, sinful enemy of this world. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hari Bol, Hari Bol.